For just £1, you can get a piece of film history by popping down to your local computer exchange and picking up Final Destination, a film with final in the name that would go on to have 5 sequels, so it's final in the same way Final Fantasy was final. There are a few films with quite as iconic a premise as Final Destination. For the two of you that don't know, each film follows a formula. The protagonist will see a premonition of an immediate catastrophe leading to them and a handful of people escaping death. However, you can't escape death. It will chase you down and it will kill you in the most convoluted way imaginable. In the original film, a plane explodes. A group of students and 2 teachers are heading to France on a field trip, but Alex sees a premonition of the plane they are on exploding. He panics, which causes him and a selection of his students, plus 1 teacher, leaving the plane. They then watch the plane explode from the airport terminal. This leads to everyone suspecting Alex of somehow causing the plane to explode, for no real reason as he is just a random student. The first film is the one which takes the premise most seriously, with future installments focusing more on the convoluted deaths and outdoing the last film's gnarly kills. In my opinion, that's the first film's detriment. The silly deaths, such as how the teacher, Valerie Luton, dies, being a highlight of the franchise with the characters coming a very distant last. She pours herself a hot drink but panics for no apparent reason, throwing the cup of tea onto the floor. Deciding she wants to switch from weak tea to something stronger, she puts some ice cubes into the mug and tops it up with vodka. The sudden change in temperature causes the mug to crack, and as she walks from the kitchen to her PC, she drips vodka everywhere. When she finally does reach the PC, the vodka drips into it, and sparks cause the vodka to catch fire, which explodes the monitor, firing a chunk of glass into her throat. The fire then spreads along the drips into the kitchen and into the bottle of vodka, which then also explodes. This knocks her to the ground, and with blood pouring out of her neck, she reaches for a rag to stop the bleeding. However, the rag she reaches for is sitting underneath a knife block, and when she pulls on the rag, the knife block falls and impales her. As you can probably tell, Death in the Final Destination series plays a mousetrap-like game every time it goes to kill someone. Final Destination is an exercise in creating as many Rube Goldberg machines of death as possible. The fun of Final Destination becomes trying to guess what ways death will use to kill someone, and suddenly you are scanning the screen and trying to work out how a jar of mayonnaise can kill someone. What you don't overly care about, though, are the characters being killed. The acting ranges from okay to good, with no particular standouts in my opinion. They try to flesh out the characters and add different threads to the story, but are overall just a bit messy. This comes down to how Final Destination got made. See, this wasn't a straightforward process. The original script was for an X-Files episode, but was picked up to become a full movie. Jeffrey Reddick wrote the script, which was then picked up by New Line Cinema and rewritten by James Wong and Glenn Morgan. The ending was then also changed after a test screening didn't like the original. This is where the messy feel comes from, as there are a lot of cooks in the kitchen and the end product does suffer. The effects have stood up well though. There were lots of practical effects rather than digital, so it still looks mostly good. This plane exploding premonition looks amazing and does a good job of building tension and showing what this whole thing is about. Similar to how exploding the White House on Independence Day let you know what you were in for. The effects and kills are still great and totally hold up. But, as I have said before, the characters are at best boring and at worst just plain annoying. None of this is to criticize the actors. They are doing a mostly good job with what they've been given. It's just what they have isn't great. The dialogue is tedious and the characters don't have any believable or strong enough traits to really latch onto. Everything is surface level, and more about building to the next death than getting you invested in the characters. Not that as a complaint, and it improves with time as the films get sillier and more self-aware that people have come here for the deaths. This is why the most recent Final Destination film is in my opinion the best. The characters are better and more likeable, but more than anything they lean into the premise more. It's still an okay movie that verges on being legitimately good and certainly worth watching for the superior sequels. The 3rd, 5th and 6th are the best by far, but don't expect to be blown away by this film. This is one of those films that you watch and think, okay, but this is what I would have done. It makes you think of fun deaths, crazier catastrophes, but not about the characters. They're just meat puppets for the inevitable death by mousetrap. But yeah, give it a go. If you have already seen it, and let me know what your favourite death in the franchise was in the comments below. Please like, comment and subscribe.